Hi everyone, Eric Chappelle, Civil Community Evangelist for Autodesk, and with me today is John Sayre, Technical Marketing Manager and a good friend of mine. And John's going to be presenting to you Stay on Point, using a shared reference point across products. Before we get to that though, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about our webcast series and our community. If you're new to the webcast series, this is something we do twice a month. We try to shoot for the first and third Wednesdays of the month. And the goals are to give you information about product features. More often than not, we're hearing from the product team, but today we've got a guest speaker. John is one of my colleagues in the marketing part of the company. But he's also an expert on many of our products, so we're happy to have him, especially with such an important topic, one that I know is going to be really useful and relevant to many of you, if not all of you. But the idea here is to show you some things from the perspective of Autodesk, give you a chance to ask questions and provide some feedback, and generally speaking, just bring you guys, the users, a little bit closer together with us, the makers of the software. Our next webcast, by the way, is going to be about troubleshooting InfraWorks 360. I think this is a really cool topic. We're going to hear from Carsten Sanger, who is our one of our support folks who handles InfraWorks 360. If you're active on the discussion boards, you'll recognize his name. He posts a lot up there. He's really helpful, has a lot of insight, and he's going to share with us some of his secrets, some of the tips and tricks he's gathered from the latest support cases he's been working on. He's going to talk about the model and the Git platform a little bit, and he's going to dive pretty deeply, I think, into how to troubleshoot and work with InfraWorks 360 from that perspective. So we're excited to know that webcast is coming up on April 5th. So first Wednesday of the month, April 5th, 12 to 1 Eastern. Hope to see all you there along with your friends. If you have any ideas for webcast topics, please go to your questions panel and just type those in, and you can do that at any time during the webcast, so we can just kind of gather any ideas of things that you guys want to see. One thing, we've been running this webcast series. Next month will be 2 straight years, and so far I don't think we've run out of ideas for topics internally here at Autodesk, but we also want to know, we want to make sure we're hitting the mark with what you guys want to see, so please share any ideas along those lines. I've got a few polls that I'd like to have you guys respond to, if you don't mind. The first one is, what's your current usage level with InfraWorks 360? And if you wouldn't mind providing your answer to that poll, we would just want to get a feel for where everyone is, where the audience is with their usage level. And I'll kind of give you the play-by-play with the results. So far, about half of you have voted. The leader is, I've dabbled in it on a few projects with 32%, 26%. I regularly use it on some projects. 21%, I've installed it and played with it a few times. So 7% say I use it on almost every project. 15% of you don't even have it installed. So that's exciting to know that we've got quite a few folks on the call today who are new to InfraWorks 360. So you're going to see a little bit of that product today along with some others. I'm going to close that poll. Thanks for everyone who participated. And for those of you that do use InfraWorks 360, we want to know what you use it for. Site design, road design, GIS data compilation for early project planning, residential or visualizing projects. And you can pick more than one answer here, so pick as many as apply to you. And again, I'll give you the play-by-play. Right now we're at 75% visualizing projects, 56% GIS data compilation, 52% site design. That's I think a little higher than we're used to seeing. 44 road design, and only 16 residential. So those numbers are staying pretty solid as people continue to vote. So thanks for everyone who submitted to that poll. We've got one more, and the last one is, if your company is considering adopting InfraWorks 360, what's an obstacle that is preventing that from being widespread adoption across your company? So choices include cost of the software, lack of product functionality, unclear how it fits into your workflow, Civil 3D already does what you need it to do, or training and implementation costs. So again, as the numbers come in here, I'll share with you the results. Right now, 40% on unclear how to incorporate it into the workflow. That's the leader. 28% lacking product functionality. 14% Civil 3D does what we need it to do. 11% training and implementation costs, and interestingly, only 6% said the cost of the software. So interesting that it's about clarity and understanding where InfraWorks 360 fits into your workflow. Thank you so much for everyone who responded to those polls. I know that information is useful to us. Hopefully sharing some of the results is also interesting to you and useful to you. All right, moving right along. I want to talk to you a little bit about our InfraWorks 360 community, which we're slowly morphing into an overall civil engineering community. But the location is autodesk.com/InfraWorks360 community, and there you'll find a centralized hub where you can get out to the forum, idea station, InfraTips, which is a listing of short tips and tricks that has to do with InfraWorks 360. The gallery, which now actually is a combination, it's a civil infrastructure gallery now, so you'll see stuff up there with Civil 3D and InfraWorks and even some NavisWorks, recap, all kinds of stuff. If it has to do with civil infrastructure, it's up there. We've also got the social hub, which is a feed of various social media streams as well as some blogs that are relevant to you folks. And possibly most importantly, we have all the webcast recordings from this entire series posted up there. And like I said, we've been doing this 2 years, twice a month. You do the math, that's quite an extensive library of topics covering InfraWorks 360, Civil 3D, and sometimes other products, as is the case with today's topic. So definitely go in and check those out. There is a lot of great information there in those webcast recordings. If you're interested in being an InfraWorks 360 ambassador, if you want to help drive the adoption of InfraWorks 360, if you already participate in the discussion forums, if you're already posting to blogs, social media, our knowledge base, those types of things, if any or all of these things describe you, you might want to be an InfraWorks 360 ambassador. And if that is the case, please reach out to me via email, make the subject line ambassador, and I'll send you an invitation to join up with that ambassador program. Basically, do the things on the top 3 bullet points up there, and you can earn rewards for doing so, for being a good contributor to our civil engineering community as it relates to Autodesk products. So please reach out if you're interested in that. I don't think we're going to talk about anything preview or beta today, but just in case it comes up as part of a question, just know that anything we discuss regarding preview features or beta features or things that are coming in future releases is not a promise of any kind of delivery of future functionality, and please don't make any purchasing decisions based on that. And that should cover that. With that, I'm going to turn the floor over to my good friend John, and he's going to talk to you about the shared reference point. John, you are now the presenter.
All right, Eric, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, and I can see your screen. Got Civil 3D up on the screen.
Right. Yes, sir. Does the black background look okay? I think it'll be all right for this.
Looks fine from where I'm sitting, especially with the bright purple in the drawing.
Yeah, all right. So I want to thank you, Eric, for allowing me to come on today and show this feature. When I say this feature, we always, you kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier, you know, we always get the questions, how do I share things across our products? And we forget about the fact that we have this command, we have this feature called shared reference point. And I've talked to some folks in the past about it and asked them if they used it or if they wanted to use it or if they tried to use it. And they said, no, you know, we didn't really know how it worked, so we just haven't touched it. I think once that you see how easy this is, I think it's going to be an eye-opener for you. It was for me when I first started using it. Whenever you're talking about different coordinate systems on the infrastructure side of things, And then you start talking about different coordinate systems with architects or anybody using Revit, which is what we'll talk about today. You know, our coordinate systems are treated differently inside of Revit. Sometimes if you're trying to move a survey point inside of Revit, things of that nature, things just get a little bit wonky. That's my custom word, by the way. But with this tool, we're able to very quickly and very easily share a reference point, which is huge when you're collaborating on a project, okay? First thing I want to do is I want to throw out a couple disclaimers. I'm not a Revit master, all right? I can get around in Revit. I focus on the infrastructure products, okay? So this should be a good thing for everybody here to see, is that somebody with my limited knowledge on Revit can actually get this done. So everybody on the call, I'm throwing this out there. You should be able to do this when we're done. I focus on the infrastructure products, so I'm not in Revit all the time. I do use it, you know, more than I used to, but definitely not a master. So that's a good thing to know up front. Everything that you've seen or that you will see here, I've tried not to pre-bake anything. So we're going to start from scratch here on setting this point and starting to bring things together. So when we get to the InfraWorks piece, the model that I have here in Civil is a little larger, and it does take a little bit to import it, but you need to see how that works. So I am going to show it. So there might be a couple, 3 minutes where we're watching things work, but we're going to also, I've got things to fill in for that and talk about on the data set itself. So I promise to keep you occupied, that's for sure. So to start off, I want to tell you where you can go get this feature, because I have what's called a sit call every month for the inside folks here at Autodesk, and there was a lot of folks that were having problems finding this, and this kind of is how all of this got started. So I'm going to actually take you out and show you where you can get this. So everybody should be familiar with manage.autodesk.com, if you can spell it right. All right, so you would log in here to manage.autodesk.com with your Autodesk login. All right, mine will be a little different. I go in a different way. So I will log in. Once you're logged in, it's kind of a, you can see all, this is where you'll be able to see all of the products that you can download. So I mean, you'll be able to download everything in the collection pretty much. But where they've got this, and I don't want to call it hidden, but where they've got this located, this shared reference point feature, is under product enhancements. So it starts out here in all products and services. We're going to go to the quick link here, product and enhancements. All right, and it's not just something that's going to show up here in this list, okay? It's inside of a set of tools. That set of tools is the productivity tools for AutoCAD Civil 3D 2017. So if you get in that set of enhancements, this is where you will find it. You not only find the Civil 3D file, but you also find the installer for Revit. All right, so both of those are here. You get the README. Here's the installer for Civil 3D, and here's the installer for Revit. So I thought it was key to kind of show you where this is at, period, because it was a little bit of a struggle to find it. And once we found it, I just want to make sure I get that and broadcast that out as much as I can. So that's how we find it. You basically just download this, install it. You'll install the Civil piece and the Revit piece, and they'll come up correctly inside of the software. So we'll go ahead and jump into Civil 3D. Just a little bit about this model. This is a model that we were actually building for this specific purpose, okay? And we were doing this actually before Eric asked me to come on and talk about this. I was talking to him, and that's how this topic got brought up, and now we're doing the webcast on. So we already had a lot of this done. This was actually flown with a drone for existing conditions or existing ground conditions capture. And so we took it through recap. We brought in the point cloud, generated a surface, and then actually created a design surface on top of this so that we could marry up the Revit model to our finished design surface. So when we get to InfraWorks, we'll actually bring in the civil model itself, or the surface that you see here. This surface, if I select it, we'll bring this in, and then we'll also bring in the Revit model itself, and everything will be set up perfectly coordinates-wise. So very first thing when we get started here, all right, to find this command, once you've got it installed, you go to the toolbox, and under the Subscription Extension Manager, you'll see the Autodesk Shared Reference Point, all right? Basically what this is going to do is create an XML file with your coordinates, okay? We're going to tell it in Revit where to stick those coordinates, and then things start to match up. All right, so I'm just going to double-click on that command, and it asks me for an origin point. You kind of want to keep in mind, and I'm going to do this a specific way today, but keep in mind how the building is oriented here on my screen, all right? I went ahead and escaped out of that. I look at different things on the outside of the building, or the outline of the building, that I can focus on in Revit. So this area here, it's pointing to the north, all right? So when I get to Revit to actually add my shared coordinate, I can kind of orient myself to that. Now, one caveat here that you need to know, this outline is a polyline, all right? It's just a polyline of the outside of the building, and if you list that polyline, it has elevation set to it. So this is the finished floor elevation that I'm going to set, okay, to my building. Now, through several trials, I tried to add a finished floor that had multiple elevations, okay? So meaning if I'm at 1445 on this corner, and maybe I needed to be at 1447 on this corner, I wanted to set the polyline up like that. You can't. It's got to be one elevation, as far as I can see, and I've verified that with a couple people. So it does need to be one elevation on the polyline. So I thought that was definitely warranted bringing up. So I'm going to go ahead and double-click here again, and we're gonna start by selecting an origin point. I'm going to pick my origin point as being this corner, and then we'll pick our next point as being this corner of the building. All right. So keep in mind where things are oriented-wise as to what's here on the screen. So I'm just going to select the end point, and it says to select my next point. I'm going to select here, and it brings up my units and conform dialog. Now, if this is a kind of a red flag, if this comes up and this says 0, you need to go back and set an elevation, okay? That's a red flag if that comes up 0. If it comes up 0, you'll be in the right place X, Y, but you will not have the correct vertical elevation when you start to bring these things in. So the building won't come in vertically when you turn it on its side at the right location. It'll be down below wherever you're at. So be sure that it has the right elevation here. We want to tell it that this is in feet, okay, not meters for this particular data set. And you hit OK. Once you hit OK, we're gonna share this out, all right? And I'm gonna go ahead and just build a folder and call it a shared reference point, XML. And we'll save it out there. So you can name this file whatever you'd like. I'll just leave it this name and hit save, okay? Now, once you've done that, that's all you have to basically do in Civil 3D. We're ready to jump into Revit, all right? So we're going to flip over here to Revit. Now, from what I was describing earlier, this area right here, all right, is the area that's out front. So this line is how I set my coordinate, okay, or how I set my shared referencing. So you can see the building's basically turned 180 degrees. So this area here needs to be rotated to where it's pointing this direction, okay, to match up with our civil model. So don't do like I did the first time I did this. You gotta actually select it in the right direction. And remember, we selected this going from the left to right, okay? Well, in the Revit model, that's right to left because it's rotated 180 degrees. These are just a few little things I want to throw out as I go so that whenever you do it, hopefully it helps you from making the mistakes that I've made. So inside of Revit, it's very straightforward. We just go up to the Add-ins tab, and you'll have a shared reference point add-in, all right? I can go ahead and select that shared reference point add-in, and it flips me right into the command. So I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to select my endpoint of the building, and I'll select this endpoint of the building. All right, now it's asking me for the shared reference point file, and I'm going to use the one that we just got through exporting. All right, it's in this folder. I select it and hit open. Now, it's asking me to confirm, are you sure you want to create the shared coordinates? Yes. And it says I was successful. Now, nothing happened. And this is where a lot of folks just stopped because, again, if you're an infrastructure person, you're not necessarily a Revit expert. So you're not sure, you know, about how to set orientation, how to manage views, things of that nature. So we look at the Revit model and, well, shoot, it didn't rotate. All right, so there's a couple of extra steps. They're very straightforward and simple. If we go to the Manage tab, this is where we can actually manage the location. All right, so if I select Location and I look at my Site tab, you can see that there is a shared reference. This is my shared reference point. All right, so the view that it's looking at now, the definition of how it's rotated and everything, it's set to that internal location. If I wanted to reference my shared reference point, then I just pick my shared reference point project location and I make it current, all right? And it's going to go through and it's going to do some calculating here and it's going to make this current in this dialog, all right? So now my project is set to my shared reference point coordinates. I hit OK. Nothing happened. There's one more step, all right? And again, you'll get to where you do this all the time and forget this step and want to bang your head on the wall. But if you look here on orientation in my properties dialog, it's set to Project North. Project North is the direction that Revit is wanting to look at it. All right, so I'm going to select True North and hit Apply, and notice the building rotates. Okay, so now this Revit model is set to my correct location. Now, I want to prove it, okay? And I'm always wanting to prove it. I had to prove it to myself, and I'm wanting to show you how you can prove it to yourself once you start doing this with your models. Basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this Revit model. I'm just going to do a save as, because I like to keep things separate. And I'm going to say this is my building, shared ref, webcast, all right? And I'll save it. So once it's saved, what I'm going to do real quick so you can see how it comes in Civil 3D is I'm going to export out a 2D drawing of it. All right, so you can do that inside of Revit very quickly. If I go up to my Revit button and I go down to Export and CAD Formats, I can export a DWG. All right, so one thing you need to remember when you select Export Setup, make sure it's not Honolulu, which is what, I don't know why it was Honolulu in this particular drawing, but it was. You want to use the in-session export setup, all right? And then I'm gonna look at those settings, all right? So I can look at my units, make sure it's set to, this is set to inch, that's fine. I want to make, actually I'm going to set it to foot, and I'm going to tell it I want it to use the coordinate system, my shared coordinate system, okay? You definitely want to make sure this is set that way, because if you don't, then it's not going to come in the right location. All right? So I hit, and yeah, I'm pretty sure. I don't know why, but I'm second guessing myself on this, but I think I set this to foot earlier and it was fine. So I'm going to go to the Solids tab. The next thing you need to do so that we can export a 3D view is we want to be sure that this ACIS Solids is checked and not the Polymesh. Okay? Those are the only two tabs that we really need to worry about, and everything should come in correctly when we export. So if I hit OK, and then I hit Next, it's going to ask me where I want to put the drawing. I'm just going to call this 2D footprint. All right, and we'll leave everything manual, and I will hit OK, and it will export that drawing out. And if we did everything correct, it should pop right in the exact location that it needs to. Keeping our fingers crossed here.
Quick question,
So I'm
John.
back in Civil 3D. Yeah.
So when you installed the shared reference point from after you downloaded it from manage.autodesk.com, did that install it in both Civil 3D and Revit, or are those two separate downloads?
They're two separate downloads.
Okay.
If you remember when I was pointing that out, here is where you download. There's two separate places. There's the shared reference point installer for Civil 3D, and then the shared reference point installer for Revit.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
This is year specific. So what I mean is this will not install on the 2016. You'll have to download the 2016 version of this, and it's out there. It's out there. It's just under a different productivity pack. You'd find it in the same location that we found this. All right, good to go?
Thanks, John.
All right, so we have a drawing that's out there now. I'm just going to attach it as an XREF, all right? So if I get into my XREF manager and I attach that DWG that we exported, all right, you go to my D drive here, and I go to the right folder, and for Webcast, and here's my 2D footprint, okay? I'm going to hit open, and I'm not going to select anything here. I'm going to have it come in the exact spot. I'm not going to tell it an insertion point, anything. I'm just going to hit OK, and voila. There it is, and it comes in the exact location. Now, this is a great sign. That means we actually set the coordinate system correctly, and it's in the right XY. We can see that, but we can't see if it's vertically in the right XY, okay? Or in the, let me say that again. We can't see if it's vertically in the right Z location, all right? But this is a great start. So we have a 2D export that we can start to have show up in our drawings. Let's go ahead and I'm going to remove that. I'll just detach it. And let's export one more thing here out of Revit. Let's go to a 3D model, all right? You can see this Revit model is pretty, I don't want to say heavy, but it is a bigger model. It's a multi-story building. There's some furniture and things of that nature in it. They've got MEP stuff inside of it. It's a good model. They built it specifically because they wanted that. They can do clash detection in NavisWorks, things of that nature. So the model is a little heavier. But all I need to do is just go to a 3D model or a 3D view, and then I can export this out. All right, so I can hit export, and export as a DWG. Again, make sure, and I know we just exported this out, okay, but be sure that this in-session export is still what's selected. And I'm just going to quickly look and make sure that my units are still good. Foot and shared or coordinate system, and then solids. Make sure that the ACIS solids is selected. Then I'm going to go ahead and hit next, and it's going to ask me what I want to save. So I'm going to call this a 3D footprint, and hit OK, and it'll export that out. Now, it does take just a second to export it. The 3D model is a little bit heavier, a little bit bigger drawing whenever it exports. You will be able to see it 2D, so you could just export a 3D model, and it could you know, maybe work for everything you're wanting to do. I just like the 2D model also because it's a smaller file that you're XREFing in, and we all know that the lighter the files, the better things work. And you get into an 80 meg drawing or an 80 meg Revit file or something like that, and you try and bring that in, you're going to be able to do it, don't get me wrong, but it's going to slow things down sometimes. So like I said, it does take it just a second to export. I said a second. Well, you guys can call me on that if you'd like. One thing that when I was doing this and setting all of this up, you notice down there in the lower left-hand corner, it's stuck at 36%. That's normal with this particular model anyway. If it hangs for just a second, it's still thinking. You just got to let it go through its paces here. Eric, do you have any other questions while we're waiting on this?
One question on whether this is available for 2015. Do you know the answer to that?
Yes, it was. I'd have to go find it, but I'm 100% sure that it was. I believe it was either 14 or 15 when it came out. So
another question.
You would go to the, okay, go ahead.
Could you show the project base point values?
Project base point values, the X, Y, and the Z?
That's all it says.
Do you mean the XML file? I can show you the XML file that it exported.
There was a question about that, about editing the XML file, so it might be helpful to take a look inside of there and see what's going on.
I don't recommend editing the XML file. Those things are created specifically for a reason, and I know that XML is a pretty basic code that you can modify. You're welcome to try it. It's not going to hurt anything. Let me show you what that XML file looks like. All right, it just looks like this right here. Okay, gives you your coordinates, gives you the origin for the X, Y, and Z. All right, and your rotation. So for a second there, I didn't think it had the Z, but there it is. But this is what the XML file looks like. Hopefully that answered their question. Yep,
you've gotten expressions of thanks from the questions window. So thanks for doing that.
Perfect. All right, so we've exported our 3D model. All right. Now I'm going to get back into Civil 3D, and remember I said something about it was a little bit of a heavier file, it was a bigger file. So you can see that 3D footprint's 40 meg. All right, the 2D footprint was 272 kilobytes. All right, so that's why I say, you know, pick your poison. It's totally up to you which one of these you use. Sometimes we want to see that stuff in 3D in context inside of Civil 3D. It definitely helps you tell a story. So I wanted to show that you could do it. So let's attach it. We will attach that DWG. I'll pick that 3D footprint, and I'll just hit OK. It's going to take a second to bring it in. And if we did things correctly, it should pop right in at the right location. I can tell you my processors are running wild, so we know that things are happening. When you're using the bigger models like this, again, I can't stress enough that you do need to try and stay patient. So there's your model. All right, now notice what it did do, and this is again why it's a little bit heavier of a DWG that it exports. You can see all of the information inside the building. This is for multiple floors. All right, so that's why it's that much bigger. Okay, so if I turn this on its edge and look at it in 3D now, and it's going to take it just a second. Once it gets to the initial view, it moves pretty good. Here we go, getting there. Should turn it on its side here. And we'll be able to see the 3D building, and there it is. You can see it right there. And you can see my surface. It's regenerating here. There we go. So I can zoom in, and you can see that Revit model. So I'm trying to rotate it here. It's taking it just a second. Again, this is a very heavy Revit model, so that's why it's taking just a little bit longer for it to react. But you can see I'm turning it pretty easy. Once it's set, you can change your view style, your visualization style, and we can look at it any way we want. So it's looking at 2D wireframe. I could use, we can do realistic or conceptual. Let's just do conceptual, see what that looks like. But you get the picture. You can look at this in a 3D context inside of Civil 3D and actually see that footprint of the building, which I hope that you agree with me. The steps to get to this point, very minimal. And that's why I was so happy to be able to bring this to you. So you can see everything looks great. All right. So let's go back to our plan view. I'm going to take it just a second. All right, so I have this exported as DWGs. Let's do this. Let's go back into Revit. We want to talk about how we can get it into NavisWorks. So let's do this. We already have what we need to get it into NavisWorks, but I can actually export out a NWC, okay? Saves this scene as an NWC. So let's do that real quick and show you how we can start to look at this in Navis. So I'm going to go back one folder. Of course, my views are not the way I like them. And export this to my 4 Webcast folder. So we'll just call this Revit Model. All right, and I'll hit Save. And it exports out that NWC. Okay? While that's exporting, I can go back here to Civil 3D, and I needed to hit Enter one more time. And it should go back to my real world. Go back to a 2D wireframe, and everything should be good to go. I'm going to go ahead and I can leave that right there for right now. Now, I'm sure that there's a question about, well, what happens if the Revit model updates? You do have to, if they update the Revit model inside of Revit and it's on the shared coordinate, all they need to do in order for you to bring this back into Civil 3D is just export another 2D file. All right, and then you can XREF the building right in. It looks exactly like what their edits would show. There's not a direct link to get that and make that happen. You would have to re-export that. So we should be getting really close. Yep, it's getting close.
John, there was another question I'll throw at you if you want to take it. A couple of people ask about the building site object and the ADSK format as a way of going between Revit and Civil 3D. Is there an advantage to doing the DWG export over that?
I believe there is, because the file is, number one, I think it's more stable. The ADSK format, that was how we did it before we had shared reference point. So I think you definitely benefit from doing it the way that I've just shown over the ADSK format. Now, that's not to say that that methodology doesn't work. I'm just saying this is much smoother. Does that help?
Yeah, that's what we're looking for. Thanks.
All right. So we're in NavisWorks. I'm just going to open that file, that NWC that we just exported. All right. And let me find NWC, John, not NWF. And I'll pick that Revit model, and it'll open up my Revit model. Now, you're going to see some numbers here on the model itself. That's stuff that came and exported from Revit. That's okay. You can turn that information off. But I can see my building as it looks in Revit right now. Now, to get my civil model in, I can just append that DWG. So if I go back and set my file of type to DWG, and I always have to scroll down. I apologize. Autodesk DWG. And I pick that civil master and hit open. It's going to bring in that civil master. So it's going to take it just a second, just because, again, it's a large file because of the surface that was generated from the point cloud. So we'll let it go ahead and churn on that. And while it's doing that, we're going to jump into InfraWorks. Okay. I hope I'm not jumping around on the products too much, but there's no reason for us to sit and watch this come in. We'll come back to it in just a second. But this is all you have to do, is just add this to it, and we'll have everything inside of NavisWorks the same as we do Revit and Civil 3D. So I'm going to jump to InfraWorks, and we're going to start this from scratch. Okay, I'm going to build a model in Model Builder. All right, so I thought about using an existing model that I had already done, but I want you to see that this is all it takes to build. All right, so this particular project is at 63 Truman Road, Marshfield, Missouri. If you didn't know, I live in Missouri. I don't live in Marshfield. It's about 50 miles away from me. All right, so I need to be able to see where I'm at. So I'm going to turn that angle view off. And this particular project lies right here. Oh, lies right here. Okay, this is the project right here. So I'm going to go ahead and generate a model with that area right there. I'll go ahead and pull all of that, doesn't matter. And I'll change my folder online. It's going to go to a shared reference point, and we'll call this SRP Webcast. And hit Create Model. Now, it's only going to take maybe a minute, 2 minutes for that model to come back. We just get better and better response times from Model Builder. Once it's here, we'll go ahead and open it, and we'll be good to go. We can go back here to Revit, or I'm sorry, to NavisWorks. It's still chewing on it, still thinking about it. It will come up. Just a little bit of background as to what it's doing. That drawing file is 260 meg. All right, so it's not a small file. It's a pretty large file, so it does take it just a second to come into Navis. Once it's in, you're able to navigate around very easily. So we've already got our model back here in InfraWorks. I'll go ahead and select it, and it'll open. Once it opens up, then we'll go ahead and attach a couple things, and I'll show you how that works. There's a setting that I need to show you inside of InfoWorks that needs to be set before we start to bring this information in. You're able to actually attach a Revit model, and it pushes that coordinate system information up to the cloud and then orients it in the cloud. That piece for right now is not functioning exactly right. They're working on fixing that. So whenever we bring this in, it can read the coordinate and the placement using the NavisWorks engine. So I'm going to show you where that's at once this model opens up. There it is. All right. So first things first, we need to look at that setting. So I'm going to select on my settings button up here and go to application options, and under data import, you need to make sure that this NavisWorks based local import is selected. Okay. Now you will need to have NavisWorks installed, all right, to be able to utilize this. So just be sure that you do have NavisWorks installed, and it should come in just fine. We'll go ahead and hit OK. We're good to go. Now, a couple things. I always go ahead and build myself a new proposal, and this proposal I'm just going to call it civil data. So this will be my surface that I bring in. I'm going to hit OK, and it generates me a new proposal. Now, so you can see this surface better, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get rid of my raster image, okay? Because I've got another image I can actually place on it afterwards that'll be better. All right, and that's something that I collected when I generated things with the drone. All right, so I'm just going to go back up and select that I want to bring in information from a Civil 3D drawing, okay? And again, this does take it a second because it is such a big file. It does take it a second to open this. I'll go ahead and open it. It's going to connect me to those data sources, and this is how I'm going to bring my surface in from Civil 3D. Now, this is actually going to be a little bit of a test because I have not had the DWG open at the same time I was trying to connect to it. So we may have to reconnect if it doesn't show us the information. So let's jump back to NavisWorks while this is connecting. And you can see in NavisWorks how my model came in and looks, I think it looks great. So everything's married up. If we had utilities, I mean, we could start doing clash detection, things of that nature inside of Navis. You could do timelining. There's just all kinds of, it's wide open what you could do, and how a contractor would definitely love the fact that you had all of this coordinate system stuff already fixed for them. All right, we're not physically moving a building around on the site. It's in the right location. All right, and being able to attach that DWG so that we can look at our surface and everything. I mean, this is the engineering model. All right, this is the site model with everything in it. So that's 3 products that we've shared across. Let's look at InfraWorks here. It's still thinking. It'll take it just a second. And again, we're doing okay on time, Eric. I think we're going to be okay. Before I show you, I was going to do just a little bit of a FYI on how I generated this existing surface, because we're talking about shared reference point today, but the way that I collected the data for this existing ground surface was with a drone, all right? And basically we flew this site, and the drone that was used, was two drones. There was a 3DR drone and a DJI drone, and we collected that data and pushed it through Recap 360. Once it was in Recap 360, it generated a couple, 3 files for us, all right? So we have a georeference TIFF that's right here that it generated, and we also have, in this folder, we have the RCM and the RCS file, okay? So the RCM is a mesh file. The RCS file is the point cloud. So inside of InfraWorks 360, we'll be able to drop that point cloud, and you'll be able to see the point cloud itself of the existing conditions. Now, check on this. Yeah, it's still connecting. So we could have brought in the point cloud itself and actually generated a surface inside of InfraWorks 360 to represent what the existing conditions look like, and then just brought our finished grade surface from Civil 3D, and it would have married those two together. The surface that I'm going to pull from this Civil 3D drawing is actually the surface that I used with them married together, meaning the finished ground and the existing ground married together. Should be done here in a second. That's what I get for wanting to be live, Eric.
Hey, we all appreciate that you're going without a net here. We did have a question about the NavisWorks version. Does it need to be manage, or can it be simulate? Does it matter which NavisWorks you have installed?
I have not tried it in manage, or I'm sorry, in simulate, but I know it works in manage. You just saw it. I don't see why it wouldn't work in simulate. You won't be able to do clash detection in simulate, but bringing in the models and things of that nature is not something that's, you don't have to have managed to do that, so you should be able to bring those models together in simulate.
Gotcha.
So once we've attached to this data source, I'm going to turn off these other surfaces, and I'm just going to bring in the one. All right, that's my FGEG, and hit OK. Nothing happens. All right, so I need to go back in and actually set my geolocation. All right, so making sure that it's on the coordinate system that I'm working with. So that's MO83CF. I hit close and refresh, and it's going to bring in that civil model. And you should be able to see the parking and things of that nature. And then we'll be ready to bring in our Revit model. So once it refreshes, it did take just a little bit to refresh it for the first time. I might have picked a smaller data set, but again, I wanted to show everybody this is not just something that's a small data set. There was millions. I think this point cloud, I think it actually had close to 25 million points. Okay, that's what the surface was generated from. I did kind of shrink that amount of data that it was using by reducing the number of points whenever I generated the surface in Civil 3D, but you're still looking at a surface that's got well over, I believe it's 500,000 points, so it does take it just a little bit to populate. Once it comes in, we'll be able to move, scroll, do whatever we want. Now, you can see here, I'll zoom in on this while it's still regenerating. This information here, this was all from the drone surface. So you get this level of detail with the drone surface, okay, that was generated in Recap, right? I think that tells the story. The other story that I would tell on that front is it took 10 minutes to fly this, all right? 10 minutes, I had all the data that I needed to push into Recap, and then it took about 3 hours to get the cloud back from Recap 360. So you have that level of detail. These are semi-trucks, by the way. But you have that level of detail that quickly, all right? And you can't, you know, doing a traditional survey on something like this might take take a little bit longer. So that's a whole other conversation. We'll leave that for another day. But you can see here, I've got all of my parking, things of that nature. All right. So now I need to bring in my Revit model. All right. So I'm going to go up and I'm going to select Autodesk Revit, and I'll select that Revit model. Now the Revit model I'm going to use is the one that we saved out. All right. And I am going to do this. I am going to save it, and I'm going to close it. And we should be good to go. I'll go ahead and close it. And then I will select that Revit model right there and hit open. Now it is going to take just a second to connect to this too, because again, you saw that was a 70 meg Revit file. All right. It's a bigger file, so it does take it just a second to connect. Once it connects to that, it'll be very 2 clicks, and it will place itself right where it needs to.
John, we do have
Eric, do you have any other questions while we're waiting?
I do, in fact.
Yeah.
A couple of people are interested in more detail on the drone hardware that was used to gather the data.
Okay, again, we used a 3DR drone with the Sony camera, and we also used the DJI Phantom 4 Pro. Those were the drones of choice for this particular project. I don't know if I've got the photos in this folder or not. I don't. But I think there was around 140 images that it took, with somewhere around there for both drones. But both of those do a very nice job. We did have some control points that we set, so this should be, I hesitated there to tell you that, Eric, but we do have a very good level of accuracy versus traditional survey. We're down within 3 inches of what's there. Okay, so that's always a question that folks ask is, hey, what's the level of accuracy on something like that? And that's the level of accuracy. All right, so got about 7 minutes. I've got to go ahead and configure this 3D model, which this is all it takes to configure it, okay, is set the coordinate system. That's it. So it's the same coordinate system, O83CF. If I want to look at my 3D model tab, it'll generate that model in a preview so that you can see that you're getting everything that you want, all right? Definitely do this, because sometimes the 3D models, they come in and if they're messed up coordinate-wise, they might be off in a distance somewhere, or it may not be showing the right textures, things of that nature. Just preview your model. It takes just a second, and then you can be sure that you're bringing in what you need. So after I set my coordinate system, I hit close and refresh, and if we keep our fingers crossed, we should have our model. And it brings that model in pretty quickly. So there it is. Notice we can already see shadows, and we can see that we have our model placed correctly. Now, the way you had to do this in the past was bring it in and move it up and down, move it around manually, all right? Now you can still do that. I can still grab it and move it around if I want, but it should be in the right location and the right elevation, so you can start to model and create, either a visualization piece, or you can start to make other design decisions, things of that nature, right here in InfoWorks 360. So you saw everything happen right here in front of you. I'm going to show you a finished model that I did. I actually came in. Actually, you know what? I got one other thing I want to show, Eric. I was talking about, let me spin this around in the right direction. I was talking about the georeference TIFF that we had, okay? And I'm gonna jump back to the master, and you can see, you'll be able to see the Bing image that came in, all right? And you can see the level of detail, all right? Not very good, okay? I'm going to do this. I'm just going to bring in on top of this image my georeference TIFF that we got from Recap 360 so you can see the difference, all right? And if I go back here to my TIFF, all I have to do is just drag that and drop it on the screen. And you don't have to do anything here. You just hit close and refresh, and that image will come in. It does take it about a minute, and then we're going to do one other thing to it so that you can see how it meshes with the other image once it comes in. But you're going to see the benefit of having this particular image, period. Okay? This is a real-world, what's out there today image, not from Bing, not from Google Earth, not from Google, not from a GIS store. This is what's there the day that we flew it. So if we flew it today, this image would represent what is out there right now. All right, it's almost there. Fingers crossed.
John, a question about how did you get the point cloud down to natural ground?
I set control points in the field when we shot it. And it comes in, Recap 360 takes those GCPs and the information that's embedded on the photos, meaning the geolocation of the images, and it meshes them together, and that's how it corrects itself to the real world.
Did you use Recap to remove vertical features, poles, trees, etc.?
I did not, but you can.
Okay.
You absolutely can. You can actually neck that stuff down. When I say neck it down, you can get rid of some of those features here inside of InfraWorks 360 also. Again, that's all. We got 3 minutes. That's a whole other topic.
Gotcha.
And I'd be more than willing to talk about it some other time also. Maybe on a future webcast. What do you think?
I'd be glad to have you back.
All right. So this is what's there today. All right. Now I want to show you the difference in quality of photo. All right. These are the cars in the parking stripes. This Walmart over here. That's what Bing gives us. This is what we have from the drone. I can zoom in here, and I can almost see what's in on their dash in their car. Okay. I can definitely see there's curb inlets, where the curb inlet locations are. I can see building information. If I remember right, there was one, oh, right here. There's something in this guy's front seat, okay? You can't see that stuff on the Bing images. You can see landscaping. You can see all kinds of stuff. This is what is there today, all right? And you get this information from Recap whenever you push out your model or use the photogrammetry to generate the model. So we got 2 minutes here, Eric. I could go for another hour if you'd like, but this definitely tells a story, and it tells. I know I got off a little bit on the way I captured this information with the drone, but I think it was definitely key here. The shared reference point, folks, use it. It's there. It works. It works very well, and you're able to bring this information back and forth between Revit to Civil 3D, to NavisWorks, to InfoWorks, very, very seamless. So I think that's what I wanted to show you today. So
that was
if
awesome.
we've got any other questions, I'll take them now.
I'm actually going to change myself to presenter. And before we let everyone go, I just want to remind them about our next webcast, which again is Wednesday, April 5th, 12 to 1 Eastern, and Karsten's going to talk to us about troubleshooting InfraWorks 360. John, that was an awesome presentation. We had a lot of great questions, I think most of which you answered. A lot of thank yous and congratulations coming through on the questions panel. So thanks for being a guest as part of the webcast series, and we'd love to have you back in a future date. I know that we've got just during this webcast, you came up with a couple of additional topics that maybe you can come back and talk to us about. So I look forward to doing that someday in the future. Thanks, everyone.
Absolutely.
Cool. Thanks, everyone who attended. Have a great day, and we'll be posting the recording for this webcast by the end of the week. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.